Starting our new series in Galatians, so if you guys can flip to Galatians 1. We're going to talk about the word sufficient this morning. So then you have this spiritual warfare that takes place where all this stuff is going down, and you have this group called the Judaizers. This group came from Jerusalem, and they started a tour where they would go in and they said, Paul is making this too easy. We believe in Jesus, but guess what? You have to live like the Jews too. So what they were trying to do is they were trying to add something to the gospel message. That it wasn't enough to be just Jesus paying for your sin. Jesus paid for your sin, that's great. But now you have to follow the dietary laws. So the key principle this morning is that the perverted gospel is insufficient. Can you see that it's a pretty plausible argument that Jesus paying for your sins isn't enough for salvation? I understand that Jesus paying for my sins is sufficient for my salvation. We all agree with that. What I'm asking you to think through is, can you see how someone coming in after Paul, persuading and tickling the ears of saying, no, that's too simple. The gospel is that God created the world and he's designed it a certain way. Man chooses his own path apart from God, and that resulted in sin and death. Think garden, think Genesis. God paid for the sin of the world through the life, death, and resurrection of his son, Jesus Christ. He offers salvation by grace through faith in his son. We've all heard this. God's love means you must make a choice. Do you surrender your life to God? Do you acknowledge that Jesus is who he says he is and that he paid for your sin? You ever heard the gospel of works? You ever hear that term? Yeah, you got to do stuff, right? I gotta dig a ditch for Jesus. It's works. It's I have to do stuff so that Jesus will therefore love me, and that's not what his word says. And Paul begins this letter by saying, hey, I was directed by God to go to you. Paul is stating in the very beginning of the letter, the authority by which I came to you was God. God is telling his entire story for the entire world. In grace, he picked you. He paid for your sin. He has a role for you that you play. And he's directing you in that. Paul was responding to this. He needed to frame the argument around what the argument was about. The argument was about Christ's job, Christ's role, what Christ did in God's story, not being sufficient, not being enough. You cannot expect to reach your community if you're not excited about the gospel of Jesus Christ. Let me reiterate what he's saying here. He's saying, I don't get how you're missing this. I'm astonished. I'm dumbfounded. It's insane to me that you are walking away from this gospel. Notice that Paul says in the beginning that you're deserting him, that you are actually walking away from Jesus Christ. That the gospel message is not an invention of man. It's a revelation of God. The man-made gospel earns it. The man-made gospel says, I'm the one who does the thing that gets me saved. Whenever man creates a religion for himself, he wants to be in control. Jesus says, no, I'm in control. I'm the one that's responsible. I'm God. And Paul is going back to that and saying, this gospel that you're questioning changed my life. It changed everything about me. I was willing to kill you. The strongest argument, hear this, for the gospel of Jesus Christ is a changed life. He didn't save you and go, all right, done, tapping out. All right, story's over. I did it. He granted us salvation. He paid for the sin of the entire world. And now he's using us to proclaim his truth through our community. If you add to the gospel, you'll be stuck in religion, not in salvation. He's enough. It's about time we started acting like it.